Our next presenter is Claire Procopio. She is the Honors Program Director and Professor of Communication at Southeastern Louisiana State University. She teaches courses in research methods, political campaigning, interpersonal and organizational communication, as well as public speaking. Please welcome Dr. Procopio to the NCHC stage.
Let me shake it up and stand on this side of the stage for you, kind of make things a little different for us. How's everybody doing this afternoon? We're good? All right. If you are here at a Best Honors Administrative Practices session, I assume it is because you are looking to improve administrative practices in ways that make sense in your program. When I first went, my first NCHC, I took over honors at my institution in fall of 2016, but my first NCHC was fall of 2018, and I went to these kinds of programs religiously trying to find out what should I be doing, how should I be running my honors program. And there are things that I think we all face as honors administrators as challenges, and if you kind of get in your mind what your challenges are as an honors administrator, I'm willing to bet 2 of them come up if you were to kind of tick off your top 5. One will be funding. We all struggle across all of higher education really with all kinds of programs to have enough funding. And if you've looked at some of the NCHC surveying on budget and resources, you will see that we run the gamut on kinds of funds that we have. How many of y'all have relatively large budgets? Anybody in here with like, I've got more than $150,000 in programming kind of money? There's some large budgets out there. Our average is $155,000 in that reporting survey on budgeting, but our median is $30,000. There are some big programs with nice resources for bankrolling those Truman Scholars and getting those Goldwaters prepared, and there are people like my institution where that's just not our reality. In fact, across all types of institutions, 13% of us have budgets less than $5,000. So you don't enjoy, yeah, that felt a little more familiar for some of us. I remember coming to NCHC in 2018 and thinking about all of the things people were doing, mentoring programs, living learning communities, scholarships, fellowships, all those kinds of applications, support for students, and thinking, how do I do that at my institution because I have no money? So how do I figure that out? And I wasn't going to do it, but how did I make it appropriate to my role, scope, and mission? The second thing, of course, we're all trying to do is to develop honor students. We're trying to get them to graduation. We're trying to get them to have these interdisciplinary experiences and travel and study abroad experiences and to really have a rich and meaningful honors, I don't want to say add-on, but honors infusion to their regular curriculum. Well, when I started out in honors, I had budget envy. I looked at what other people had. In fact, my daughter was starting at the Research One up the road the same year that I took on the honors director position, and they had scholarships. They had money for her to read up on fellowships she might want to apply for junior year. They had stamp scholars. They had a lot of things that, frankly, I just didn't enjoy as a resource, and I thought, well, how am I, this girl with champagne tastes but a beer budget, going to get my students these same kinds of experiences, make them successful with their honors program? I had 135 students in the program when I took over. I had 1 course release, a half-time secretary, and 1 graduate assistant. That was the honors program. And I had to start and had to build and get to where that could work. So my message is less really, I'm going to have some how to do it, but in some ways, for those of you coming from those kind of programs, a message of hope, because we have grown a lot and our budget has grown, and it's happened because of our honor students. And I think everybody recognizes that. Honor students are a special group. You can lean on them in a way that you can't necessarily any other kinds of students. So if you're going to do that to grow your program and to give them the kinds of experiences you're hoping to give them, here's what I've picked up in the last 4 or 5 years of doing this. First off, I think you do have to establish some kind of structure both for input and accountability. That is, students need informal and formal ways that they talk to you and let you know how the program is going and what they want, but you also need some formal accountability, so when you need students someplace a Tuesday at 4:30, you've got some students you can lean on. So we started, I got a bank statement my first month on the job that said I had $88 in something called the Honors Club account. So I called up the previous director who had been purchasing paper out of his own budget and said, "What's this $88, Kent?" And he said, "Well, there used to be an honors club back in the day. If you want, we can go cash it out. I'm signed onto the account. We'll put it in your development money." And I said, no. It's much more useful to me as the honors club. They have a tax ID. They have a bank account. I'm halfway home. So we recruited some students out of my honors public speaking class who were interested in having a more robust, I would get that from students in the class, well, I'm in honors, but I can't really see what that means other than some classes on the books. So got them to form an organization and said, what's your mission going to be? The old Honors Club had done tutoring on campus is what they did. And so what are you guys going to do? And they said, well, we really think there should be like programming for us. And I said, great. Your charge is 2 academic, 2 service, and 2 social events a semester. If you guys can get that done, that's a win this fall. So that actually was in the spring when we started rolling. That grew quickly into a larger group of honors ambassadors. The Honors Student Association put things on for all of the students in the program, but the honors ambassadors went to things like recruiting, and there was a lot of overlap. You'll notice some of the faces were the same, but they were students who perceived of themselves as really diving in and taking on a leadership role. This is a picture of our first living learning community, which we launched in fall 19. So that gave me 3 structures. I had leaders that I could lean on, and I had beginning freshmen have a space. And we did this through partnerships, just went and talked to Residence Life and said, well, can we put them along the same wing of the hall? Can we do some programming for them? You know, you all have similar things. The next step, and I think this is maybe an advantage that you actually have as an underfunded program, is you can then turn programming over to them. You wanted an honors program, you're in the honors program, you are the honors program. So how do we make that work? We talk about, if you've looked at some of the NCHC fora on fragility with honors students, not grading honors students so that they'll take some risks. I mean, honors students are good at knowing if I want to go to med school, I need an A in all these classes. If I want to go to law school, if I want to go up for the Truman, I need things I can point to where I'm successful. They can be scared to take a risk sometimes. So one of the nice things about having your program ride on the backs of students is failure is always an option. They really do have to put themselves out there. If they have a crummy event that nobody shows up for, that's what happens when you don't plan things. That's what happens when you don't advertise things. That's what happens when you don't survey and do a needs assessment and figure out what people want. It's good for them to fail some. And you want them, obviously, to be more successful than to have, you've got to be their support system and work the bureaucracy and make the room reservations and all that stuff. But it is good to let them own it. In addition to making yourself comfortable with turning it over to them, make yourself comfortable with the idea that the first things they're going to want to do is party planning. This was hard for me. I earned an honors diploma back when you did the core curriculum with, the history and the English matched, and you had a philosopher and an arts professor, and you did the whole, great history series in 4 semesters. My students at first just kind of wanted to get together and do things. So I dragged them to the Southern Regional Honors Conference and had them present. I was like, that's academic. You need to do that. But they took pictures of themselves having a good time in Memphis. I told them, well, let's get together and have some sort of guest speaker. They threw a tailgate. I said, hey, let's have the coaches on campus come talk to you about leadership development. They wangled courtside seats out of them. So I had to just make my peace with it. They're talkers, they're good. But it meant then that when they wanted now then to do academic programming, hey, we have a guest speaker, they knew each other and would show up because their friends were throwing an event. So I had to kind of make my peace with not everything is reading the classics. The other thing that I think once you've got them kind of going, they sort of know each other, you've got your structures, they're getting along, start getting them involved in your recruiting. I really have them well trained at this point. I send them out to things. This was a student browse I sent them to. The kids on the right are my honors ambassadors. The kids on the left are 2 girls they talked into joining honors while they were at the event. They just take pictures of them. They send them to me now. I don't have to spend a lot of energy telling them I need stuff for the Instagram feed. They run that. They send that all to me now. This is a picture of our current Honors Student Association group getting ready to do the Honors Welcome. I've turned the Honors Welcome over almost exclusively to that Honors Student Association group. And it changes flavor. It's really fun to watch, but the program changes flavor every few semesters as new leaders come on board. So the previous class of leaders, it was the Honors Welcome was kind of a wine and cheese with the faculty sort of style affair. For these kids, they did flip cup tic-tac-toe. It's COVID. They can't get out and see each other very much. We could do it outside. We could do it distanced. They have been a blessing throughout all of the pandemic, hybrid, and remote stuff because, and I've been at enough panels today, everybody's telling the same story about your students are the ones who came up with these things. And so they did MTV Cribs when they were on lockdown and had all the freshmen tour each other around their dorm rooms and came up with trivia night online and Jackbox as a group. This group, they know now when they travel in our study abroad programs just to take a picture and send it to me. I don't solicit these. If my photos aren't great, they're not mine. These are things that students have now just gotten in the habit of saying, we like our honors program and we want other students to join us in it. Don't be afraid to use your curriculum. We were, when I inherited honors, we really didn't have that standard honors 100, honors 2000, that welcome honors requirement as part of our thing. So we developed that fairly quickly, and SC 101 honors is the name of it. But what we did when we did the course description for what differentiated their regular orientation course and ours, we built some engagement points into that. So that for my student leaders who are kind of, I call them honors diggets, but they're really into it, there are a few other students who will come. If you've got an event with 10 kids at it, that's an okay event. If you have 5 who show up because they're getting their points, that's a robust event. So you supplement those 10 with another 5 or 6, and it gets a little bigger. And then the kid who wanders by sees 20 people in a room and comes on in. So use your curriculum. We did engagement with the curriculum. It's not a coincidence that when I started our living learning communities, I did 2 initially, we're up to 3 now, but they were themed around leadership was one track that you could take. Arts appreciation was the other track that you could take, and that did 2 things for me. One, I got students who were coming in and seeing themselves on a leadership track within our honors program. The arts appreciation meant that I had students who wanted to go to the theater together, they wanted to go hear music together, they wanted to go to a dance recital together. So it gave us both a little interdisciplinary, a little activity, a little group of leaders, and it worked. One of the most interesting things that grew out of that initial fall of 19 living learning community, those kids at the end of the year, and again, I build in moments where they have time to talk with me. I would go by, and I'm not teaching those courses, I just go by and hear how it's going. Ask toward the end of that first semester in their living learning community, can we stay together next year? And honestly, they were ahead of me. I hadn't thought that far yet. I was like, yeah, sure, I can swing that with housing. That shouldn't be a problem. And another one quickly said, well, but we'd like to mentor the guys who are coming in and tell them, what we know. And I'd heard mentoring panels when I was at NCHC. I was like, ooh, check, another thing I thought I might do, we're going to get to do. And then one of them, because they're honors kids, they work the angles, they said, well, could we get credit for doing it? Because they know I can't pay them. And I said, well, we could, because our orientation class is a 2-hour class. For the cost of me doing a little curriculum development, I put together a 1-hour mentoring course for the kids who stay and mentor out of their LLC, the kids in the next year's class. In that next fall, they can take a 1-hour mentoring class. It allows me a way, we meet weekly, I'm able to talk to them, and we build reflection. I think they get a lot out of thinking about their own leadership. So it's a legitimate development piece for them. We talk about interpersonal communication style. We do a lot of cool things in the course, but it gives me a way to get them to mentor the other students, and it gives them a way to turn what would be a kind of a hanging out their 2-hour credit into a useful 3 hours of honors credit. So the kid on the bottom left there is Braxton Michel. He was the guy who suggested it. He's now in his second time being a mentor. So his mentees are now my mentor. We call him Grand Mentor because he's the grandpa of the group. But he organized this group to put together with the incoming kids coming in for this year's living learning communities. They put together a website where the students could go in and kind of read up on each of the mentors. They organized a speed dating site. They didn't like that they couldn't pick their mentors. So they set it up so the mentees can pick their mentors. They had a whole event for them. It's amazing what they will take and do for something that they are just excited about. What they've built. They do now put on academic programming for me all year long. I went from initially a couple of, I'm doing 2 or 3 a semester to where we have an event or 2 every week. Over the course of a semester, we probably have 25, 30 events. They've toured this is the Invertebrate Museum on campus I didn't even know existed. My biology honor students were like, oh, we got to take people over. It's really cool. They brought in professors to come, and he does biology photography for us. I just show up to the meetings and look at what they're doing. This young lady is one of my favorites. She's an art education major. She puts on now our Bob Ross nights, which is cute because she's a ceramicist, but she's like, I can teach anybody to paint a tree. So she does the arts nights with our students. They do service where they've rounded up things for the local school system. They participate in the chemistry STEM events now. This is an honor student association. This was kind of right after COVID. In fact, I think it was spring of 20. It might be spring of 21. She came up with the idea, or their service committee came up with the idea of making Valentine's Day cards for all of the custodial staff on campus. There are 300 custodial staff members on our campus. So they made each and every one of them a handwritten card with a little candy. They're thoughtful in ways that, frankly, I as one person can't possibly anticipate all the things that they could be doing. So if you do it, they're going to grow a whole lot from it. One of the things I will say is we've been intentional about building in reflection moments where we've used our curriculum. My very favorite assignment in the mentoring class is to give them a list of questions that you see on job interviews on a regular basis. So tell me about a time you dealt with a difficult person. How do you work in a team? What's your leadership style? And they have to answer those questions with specific examples from their mentoring experience. So they have to go in and really pick things that they have done and say, that's how I would answer that. So it's not enough, I think, just that they grow, but that they can articulate and think about how these experiences are helping them. And at the end of the day, I think it's a little bit of a flip on the adage, if you build it, they will come. In my experience, if they build it, they will come. We have now 700 students in the honors program. We've gone from 2 or 3 classes a semester on the books to a robust spate of 30 or 40 classes in the fall and 25 or 30 classes in the spring. It's growing, and it's doing really very well for itself, and I think they're getting a lot out of it. And I really can say that shamelessly because I don't think I take any of the credit for it. It really is a story of students getting in there and getting what they need. You can lean on honor students in such a special way. They just rise to the occasion. Thanks.